Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at the PlayStation 2, but more specifically, we are looking at the launch titles. Launch titles are always important for a console because that is literally when you're trying to put your best foot forward. And the PlayStation 2 had some bangers. So today I'm going to be giving what I think are the best launch titles on a PlayStation 2. You may disagree with this list, and that's completely fine, but I want to hear what your thoughts are, and what you think of my list, and what you think is the best launch title that a PlayStation 2 received. As always, if you do think I deserve it, please hit that like button, subscribe, and the notification bell to be told when new videos are coming out. We've also got the weekly podcast, and we've also got a $1 on the Patreon where you can get involved in the podcast, and you can see the link in the description below. Right, let's get into it, shall we? The best launch titles for the PlayStation 2. Street Fighter EX3. Now look, I am very biased when it comes to fighting games. I know some of you are going to be going, no, this list is absolute garbage because you put Street Fighter on there and that's not one of the best. It is in my opinion. Okay, this is subjective, not objective. I love fighting games, so guess what other games are probably going to appear on this list? Developed by Akira, this was one of the launch titles and represented a massive turning point for the franchise. It was the first time Street Fighter felt high definition, trading the pixelated sprites of the 90s for smooth, high polygon 3D models. While it's often overshadowed by another game on this list, which is incredible, we'll talk about that one later, it's still a really good game for the PS2. This was Akira's final entry in the EX spin-off series, taking the traditional 2D fireball and uppercuts gameplay and wrapping it in a 3D engine. This was the first Street Fighter game to feature a dedicated tag team system, predating Street Fighter X Tekken by over a decade. You can swap characters mid-fight to extend combos or save a teammate with low health. The Critical Parade was a flashy mechanic where you and your partner jump on screen at the same time for a limited period, allowing you to double team your opponent in a chaotic screen-filling frenzy. The roster itself is a mixture of classic Capcom legends, Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, Guile, and Sakura, and Akira's bizarre cult favourites like the superhero Skeleton Skullomania, the mobster Crackerjack, and the shadowy Doctor in Dark. In the year 2000, gamers were looking for proof that PS2 was next-gen, and Street Fighter EX3 delivered that wow factor through sheer technical polish and features. Moving from the blocky, jagged polygons of the PlayStation 1 to the PS2 was mind-blowing. The models in EX3 were incredibly smooth, with vibrant colours and spectacular light effects from fireballs and meteor combos that made the game look like a playable anime. If you had a multi-tap, EX3 allowed for 4-player simultaneous battles. This was a huge selling point for launch day parties. Seeing 4 high-detailed fights on the screen at once without the game slowing down was a massive testament to the PS2 Emotion Engine. The game introduced a new character called Ace, and you could take him through a series of trials to earn points and literally buy his moveset. You could give him Ryo's Hadouken, Guile's Sonic Boom, and Zangief's Spinning Power Driver all at once. This creative fighter depth gave the game massive replay value during the long wait for the next big release. Street Fighter EX3 was the perfect comfort food title. New PS2 owners wanted something they knew how to play, Street Fighter, but with a fresh coat of paint. It felt like a series you loved but enhanced by the future. And while many early 3D games struggled with frame rates, EX3 ran at a solid 60 frames per second. The movement was fluid and the inputs were snappy, satisfying the hardcore fighting game community while still being flashy enough for casual fans. Street Fighter EX3 was the ultimate safe bet that actually took risks. It gave the PS2 a prestigious fighting franchise on day one, and showcased the console's ability to handle high-fidelity characters and complex multiplayer without breaking a sweat. It might not be the most pure Street Fighter game, but as a piece of launch day spectacle, it was exactly what the world needed in 2000. Armored Core 2. Developed by From Software, this was set 67 years after the original PS1 trilogy, where the wars moved to a terraformed Mars. You play as Raven, a mercenary pilot for hire, caught in the crossfire between mega corporations and a coup d'etat led by a mysterious figure named Leos Klein. The customization is the heart of the game. You build the mech from hundreds of parts, head, cores, arms, legs, generators, and FCS, the targeting systems. Every gram of weight and every kilowatt of energy must be balanced to get the right unit. In the game there's the arena, a ladder of 50 rival Ravens, and you can challenge them any time to earn credits and climbing rank. It was the perfect pick up and play contrast to the lengthy, difficult story missions. You also had a new mechanic called Overboost, where your mech's core now had a specialised thruster. It allowed for massive high-speed dash that consumes energy rapidly, but completely changes how you dodge missiles or close the gap on an opponent. Armored Core 2 is the game you showed your friends to prove the PS2 was a serious machine for serious gamers. The jump from pixelated jittery polygons of PS1 to the rock-solid high-resolution textures of Armored Core 2 was stunning. The mechs looked like actual heavy machinery with glimmering metal, heat blur effects from boosters, and dynamic lighting. The PS2's Emotion engine was put to work with incredible explosions, smoke trails from dozens of simultaneous missiles, and sparking metal. It was the first time mechs felt truly cinematic. The environments in this game were huge. From sprawling Martian deserts to claustrophobic underground cities, the center scale was far beyond anything the previous generation could offer. Now, while other launch titles like SSX or Madden were accessible, Armored Core 2 was the gamer's game. It was notoriously difficult and required deep thought. It gave the PS2 immediate street cred with a hardcore crowd. In a move that still baffles players, however, Armored Core 2 did not support the analog sticks for movements. You still use the D-pad to move and the L2 and R2 buttons to look up and down. It was tank control relic in a next-gen body, which is still a bit weird to say. This was also the first game to introduce a serious radiator system. If you moved too much or were hit by fire weapons, your mech would overheat, causing constant damage to your armor points. It added a stressful tactical layer to every fight. Additionally, this entry expanded the build options significantly, adding extension parts like shoulder-mounted missile decoys and inside parts like mines or jamming devices, making the garage phase of the game more addictive than ever. Armored Core 2 is a masterpiece of mechanical design. It was the bridge between the experimental PS1 era and the redefined PS2 era, offering a level of customization and crunch that no other launch title could match. It demanded patience and skill, but rewarded you with the most satisfying mecha experience of its time. Ridge Racer 5. Developed by Namco, this game carried a massive burden. It had to prove to PlayStation 2 as the king of style. Ridge Racer had been the face of the original PlayStation's launch in 1994, and 5 was designed to be the ultimate high-definition sequel. There's no deep story here. You're a driver in the Ridge City racing circuit. You choose a team, choose a car, and drift for your way through Grand Prix events to unlock faster engines and more aggressive rivals. Ridge Racer isn't about simulation, it's about the heroic drift. You tap the brake or let off the gas while turning to initiate a slide that defies the laws of physics. In 5, the drifting felt heavier and more deliberate than the hovercraft feel of the PS1 games. This game also features 4 legendary boss cars, the 13th Racing, Plumage, etc., and these haunt the higher difficulty tiers, and beating them is the ultimate badge of honour. The game itself takes place entirely in Ridge City. Instead of dozens of random locations, you race different configurations and links of the same massive interconnected map. Ridge Racer 5 was definitely the coolest game in the PS2 box. It didn't just show off polygons, it showed off attitude. Unlike many PS2 games that still looked a bit jagged or shimmery, Ridge Racer 5 was remarkably clean, sharp look. The car models were high gloss, reflecting the city lights off their bumpers. The game was also PS2's light show. Racing through a tunnel and emerging into the sunset, or seeing the neon signs of the city blur past you at 200 miles per hour, was the next-gen movement everyone wanted. It was a perfect showcase for the new analog buttons. Since the PS2 could detect how hard you were pressing a button, you could finally control your acceleration and braking with the precision just using the X and square buttons. Ridge Racer was also one that was able to hit that buttery smooth 60 frames per second. The high frame rate made a sensor speed feel visceral and arcade perfect. If you played the game enough, you could unlock a secret scooter ridden by Pac-Man and a car driven by the Ghost Blinky. It was a classic Namco touch that added a bit of whimsy to the serious racing. The game itself featured a fully animated 3D pit crew during Grand Prix transitions, and it's a small detail, but it made the world feel lived in and a high budget compared to the static menus of previous generations. Ridge Racer 5 is a quintessential PS2 launch game. It's fast, it's stylish, and unashamedly arcade. It captured a specific Y2K optimism, a world of gleaming chrome, electronic music, and endless highways. It might be simpler than modern racers, but its soul is unmatched. TimeSplitters. Developed by Free Radical Design, a team founded by the core developers behind N64's GoldenEye 007 and Perfect Dark, this was the game that finally gave PlayStation owners the high-speed arcade-style FPS they'd been craving. An evil race of aliens called the TimeSplitters are travelling through history to manipulate the fate of humanity. You play as various heroes across different eras to try and stop them. Unlike modern shooters, the story mode in the first game is a series of objective-based challenges. You drop into a map, grab an object like a chemical flask or a bag of gold, and race back to the exit portal while being hunted. It definitely had that GoldenEye DNA, and if you'd played that game, you definitely felt it immediately. The aiming system, the way your gun sways as you walk, the objective-based difficulty tiers, and the mission fail screen are all direct nods to the developer's roots. The game is famous for its weirdness. There are 64 playable characters ranging from standard 1920s gangsters and space marines to a gingerbread man, a zombie priest, and a literal monkey. Once again, like some of the previous games, it had that 60 frames per second, making the gameplay feel significantly more fluid and responsive than any console shooter had come before it. With the map maker, it was revolutionary for a console launch title. It featured a tile-based map maker that allowed you to build your own deathmatch arenas from scratch. You could save them to your memory card and bring them to a friend's house, effectively giving the game infinite replay value on day one. With the PS2 multitap, you could also have 4-player split-screen combat, but the real next-gen feature was the bots. You could add up to 10 AI-controlled bots with distinct personalities and skill levels, making even a solo match feel like a crowded, chaotic arena. In 2000, many games were trying to be cinematic with long cutscenes. TimeSplitters was the opposite. You pick the character, pick the gun, and we're shooting within seconds. It was a perfect showcase of the PS2 fast loading and processing power. Now when you change the difficulty from easy to hard, the game doesn't just make the enemies stronger, it opens up new areas of the map and adds entirely new objectives. It turns one level into 3 distinct experiences. The game is a completionist dream, as almost every action, beating a level fast enough, finishing specific challenges, unlocks a new character, a new cheat code, or a new multiplayer map. TimeSplitters was a blast of pure fun at the PS2 launch. It didn't care about being a realistic war simulator, it wants to be a fast, funny, and endlessly customizable arcade shooter. It established a franchise that eventually reached masterpiece status with TimeSplitters 2, but it started as the best reason to own 4 controllers with your brand new PS2. Dynasty Warriors. Now, while there was technically a Dynasty Warriors in the PS1, that was a traditional one-on-one fighting game. Dynasty Warriors 2 was a total genre pivot that created the style we know today. Being a flagship launch title of the PS2, it fundamentally changed what we expected from 3D action games. Based on the historical novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms, you choose legendary Chinese general and single-handedly fight through massive battlefields to unify China. For the first time in gaming, you weren't just fighting 3 or 4 enemies at a time. You were charging into legions, and you could see dozens of soldiers on screen at once, as a single swing of your weapon could send about 10 men flying. The battle though isn't just about you. There's a tug of war like a moral bar at the top of the screen. If you defeat enemy officers, your army gains confidence and pushes forwards. If your allies retreat, the enemy become more aggressive. As you fight, you charge a special meter, and when it's full, you can unleash a cinematic screen-clearing super move that acts as your ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. Dynasty Warriors 2, or 1, was the first game like it felt like it was doing something physically impossible on previous hardware. The PS1 could never handle the sheer number of independent AI soldiers on the screen, and seeing a field full of red and blue dots on a minimap then actually seeing those soldiers as you crested a hill was the next-gen revelation. Each battle felt like a genuine event. Stages were massive, around 150 vertical acres, and you had to choose where to intervene. Do you go save your commander in the centre, or do you hunt down the archers on the flank? While the backgrounds were a bit plain, the character models for the generals were stunningly detailed. Their armours looked fantastic, and their flowing capes and long-reaching weapons showcased the PS2's ability to handle complex textures and animations. The controls were relatively simple, square for normal, triangle for charge, but the depth came from the bodyguard system and the RPG-like stat growth. It was accessible enough for launch day casual fans, but deep enough for a weekend-long binge. Now, because the PS2 was being pushed so hard to render at least 30 odd soldiers at once, the game did use the heavy fog effect to hide the distance. Enemies would often pop up out of the mist once you got close enough, which is, well, come on, it was early days. You could find and mount horses on the battlefield, and this wasn't just for travel, as you can actually fight from the saddle, trampling foot soldiers and engaging in high-speed duels with mountain generals. The game also established the legendary gaming rule, do not pursue Lu Bu. If you encountered him at Hu Lao Gates, his stats were so boosted that it could kill a new player in 2 hits. He was the ultimate soft wall that taught players about the game's difficulty curve. In the very first entry, enemy archers were notoriously overpowered as well. They could pick you off from the edge of the screen, interrupting your combos and drain your health before you even saw them. Dynasty Warriors was a power fantasy simulator. It took the tactical complexity of Koei strategy games and turned them into a cinematic brawler. It proved the PS2 wasn't just a prettier version of old games, it was for entirely new types of experiences that let you feel like a god on the battlefield. SSX. SSX was one of the breakout hits of the PlayStation 2 launch. It didn't just redefine extreme sports game, it defined the entire early PS2 aesthetic. Loud, colourful, stylish and incredibly fast. The setup here is where you got a high stakes futuristic snowboard circuit where the goal is to win the gold medal while performing gravity defying tricks. You choose from a diverse of international borders, each with their own personality and stats. Performing tricks though isn't just for points, it fills your adrenaline bar. A full bar gives you a speed boost and allows you to perform a signature move. In this game, the focus is on building the boost to maintain a blistering pace. Now, unlike realistic snowboarding games, these tracks were massive, multi-path playgrounds filled with giant loops, corkscrews, 500-foot drops and shortcut-filled mountain villages. You could also physically punch and shove your rivals as you race. And knocking someone down gives you an instant full adrenaline bar, making aggression a core part of the strategy. SSX was the game that convinced people they needed a PS2 immediately, and it was the killer for several reasons. The game was a showcase of the PS2's particle effects and lighting. The snow looked crunchy and the spray would kick up behind your board. The fireworks and the night levels were vibrant, and the sense of scale when you looked down a mountain was breathtaking. Everything about SSX was designed to get your heart racing. The announcer provided dynamic commentary that reacted to your performance, and the music would layer in more instruments the faster you went or the better you performed. And running at that incredible frame rate, SSX felt incredibly responsive. The weight of the borders as they carved into turns and the floatiness of the massive jumps felt perfectly balanced, and it was the peak of arcade physics. The character designs were also iconic, from the cool-headed Mac to the flamboyant Eddie and the aggressive Simon. The characters had more life in their idle animations than the entire cast of previous generation games. One of the best maps was the Tokyo Megaplex. This level is legendary. It's essentially a giant multi-story pinball machine designed for snowboarding. It was a massive technical feat to have that much moving geometry and lightning on the screen at once. The levels themselves were designed with high-risk, high-reward shortcuts. Finding a hidden rail or breakable glass window shaved 5 seconds off your time and made the single-player campaign incredibly addictive. The game also made excellent use of the DualShock 2's analog sticks for precise carving, but it also utilised the pressure-sensitive buttons for varying the height of your jumps. SSX took the extreme trend of the late 90s and polished it into a 128-bit mirror finish. It was a game that looked, sounded and felt like the future. It transformed snowboarding into a high-octane combat sport and proved that EA Sports were ready to lead the charge into the new millennium. And finally, Tekken Tag Tournament. Yeah, this was the launch king in my opinion. This was why you got a PS2, for me. We all knew this was going to be on there. I freaking love Tekken Tag 2. Now, while this was a port of the 1999 arcade game, the PS2 version was so heavily upgraded it looked like a completely different and vastly superior product. For many, this wasn't just a launch game, it was the reason to own the console on day one. Here, it's a dream match scenario that ignores the series canon. It brings back nearly every character from Tekken 1, 2 and 3 for a massive crossover event. You choose 2 fighters instead of 1, and you can swap them any time with a tap of a shoulder button. If one of your characters loses all their health, the round is over, and this adds a massive layer of strategy, as you have to bench your injured fighters to let them slowly recover health. You can perform special tag throws where both characters attack at once, or tag combos where you launch an enemy with one fighter and swap in the second to finish the string. The roster here was staggering, with 34 characters expanded to 39 with unlocks, and it was the largest and most complete fighting game roster anyone had seen at 3D at that time. Tekken Tag Tournament was the visual gold standard in the PlayStation 2's first year. In the arcade, the game used old hardware, but for the PS2, Namco completely rebuilt the character models. They went from blocky, jagged shapes to smooth, high-polygon humans with moving fingers, flowing hair, and clothes that actually looked like fabric. This also was the first time we saw 3D backgrounds that felt alive. From the serene cherry blossom garden to the rainy streets of London, the environments utilised the PS2's power to show off realistic lighting and reflections. Namco included a full-blown bowling minigame featuring the entire roster called Tekken Bowl. It was surprisingly deep and became a legendary party game in its own right, proving the PS2 could just more than fight. Let's be honest, Tekken Bowl is one of the greatest party games we've ever played in our life. I think apart from that and bloody Triple Triad and Final Fantasy VIII, these two, oh my god, godlike. Now this game was designed so well that the incoming character would load instantly, so there was zero lag when swapping, which is a massive technical achievement for a 3D fighter on brand new hardware. The game is also packed with secrets, including a mysterious unknown who is the final boss, and the fan favourite Tetsujin, a metallic version of the wooden training dummy Mokujin. Now I should make this very clear, as me playing Tekken Tag, I was very happy. Why? Well, because for one, June was back. June is one of my favourite characters of all time. I loved her in Tekken 2, she was allegedly dead in Tekken 3, so she came back here. But the other point I thought was very good was Unknown, who is actually June Kazama, right? Story, however, regardless, she could become multiple characters when you just change buttons, but she always started off as June. And when I'm playing Tekken Tag, it meant I could go June Kazama, and I could be the Unknown, and essentially have 2 June Kazamas. So I was absolutely godlike, because I had that character perfected. Sorry to ramble, that was just my thing. Tekken Tag Tournament was the perfect launch title because it took a familiar, beloved franchise and gave it the god tier upgrade. It was a polished, massive, and technically flawless game. It wasn't just a fighting game, however, it was a celebration of the PlayStation's history and a bold statement about its future. And that's it, some of the best launch titles for the PS2. Let me know what you think of these games, and let me know if there's ones I didn't talk about. As always, there'll be another video in a few days, and my name's been Danny, you take care of yourself, bye bye.